In the summer of 1978, two cousins, Kevin and Tim, 20, and a friend, Steve, would spend 4 to 5 nights a week fishing the Eau Claire River just west of the Barstow Bridge, a few hundred feet upstream from where the river ended at the Chippewa. They would hang out for hours, chatting and casting their lines. 2- and 3-story buildings crowded the south bank, and they sat on some rocks in the shadow of the brick structures to the north. The only source of light for them came from a weak yellow light situated on the bridge. One night in June 1978, the three had hunkered down, quietly waiting for fish to take bite. It was around 3 a.m. and the water looked black in the darkness, they recalled. Just then something caught Kevin's attention. Downriver, someone or something was standing on a tree that had long ago fallen into the water. Kevin peered at it, almost disbelieving. Just then, Tim's attention was drawn to it as well. Neither could say why, as there was no movement or noise, but something inside them seemed to take notice, and they found themselves looking downstream at something they couldn't understand. Tim did a double take, first looking at Kevin, then back at the thing. It was still there. Turning back to Kevin, he whispered, "You might think I'm crazy or something, but what is it?" At this point, Steve, who had been looking at the water, took notice of it too. The three friends could only stare. Kevin and Tim recalled how quiet everything seemed to get. No traffic, no crickets, no sounds at all, just eerie silence. According to them, this thing standing on the downed tree was lit up. It stood 6 to 7 feet tall, was willowy with a silvery shimmering metallic look, possibly a suit of some kind, wrinkled but tight. The suit, reflective, like burnished aluminum, cast no reflection in the water. It glowed softly and appeared to be self-illuminating. Everything on the entity appeared to be elongated, spidery long legs, long spindly arms, and a lengthy thin torso. Atop its head was a close-fitting helmet with an opaque face shield. It appeared to be wearing gloves, but none of the three friends could recall seeing its feet. Kevin likened its attire to an astronaut's suit, but streamlined, not bulky. It never moved. It just looked like it was staring at us. I think that's what unnerved Steve, is that he thought it was looking at him, Tim recalled. They stared at the entity for about 5 seconds, which felt like an eternity to them. The luminous entity stood out against the black sky and woods. Then the entity turned away from them, took a step in the air, and completely vanished. You couldn't see no facial features. Its head didn't move, its arms didn't move, till it turned, a little bit, and it took one step like it would have went off that tree, and it was gone. It kind of moved sideways and gone, disappeared, Kevin remembered. With that, Steve became overcome with fear. He panicked and threw his pole into the water before turning and running off towards their truck. The 2 other boys also took off running. What really got us to go and run was when it stepped off that tree, it disappeared. It didn't drop into the water, it just disappeared, said Kevin. They tore off in their truck, kicking up gravel in their haste to get away. Kevin and Tim returned the next day to look for evidence, but found nothing. For the longest time, they wouldn't return to fish. Steve, still traumatized from the event, never did return. The first time we came back here fishing, we come out, set our worms down on the ledge, set our poles down, climbed up and hung our feet over the edge and just sat there and stared there. I don't know for how long, we just looked, Tim remembered. Over the years, Tim and Kevin have begun referring to the entity as the aluminum guy. Steve, on the other hand, refuses to discuss it, not even with Tim and Kevin. Even 20 years later, Kevin is adamant that what he and his friends saw was very real. I don't care if you think I'm crazy or not. I know what I seen. A bear stumbles out of the woods, frightening a married couple. What happened next is a first in paranormal literature. On Friday, July 5, 1985, a married couple, Greg and Stephanie McKay, drove about 5 miles off Highway 10 into the woods near Greenwater in Pierce County, Washington, and set up camp. They had been looking forward to doing some weekend camping, and they determined that this would be the perfect spot. They gathered firewood, set up their tent, ate their supper, and then eventually turned in for the night. The very next morning, just before dawn on July 6th, something emerged out of the forest and began to attack their campsite. Upon exiting their tent, the couple were shocked to see, standing in front of them, a giant bear. Speaking to Pierce County Sheriff's deputies, the couple described the bear as standing 8 feet tall. They noted that it was ugly, smelly, and its body was covered in curly brown hair. As the couple and the bear stood looking at each other, something very strange began to play out. Speaking over the telephone with a reporter from the United Press, Stephanie, 35, described what happened next. You may think this sounds crazy, but the bear talked to us. It asked us what our names were and asked whether we had permission to use the campsite. We said we had gotten permission, but the bear told us to get off the property immediately. We ran like anything. As the couple scrambled to gather up their belongings, Stephanie claims the bear, which was standing on its hind legs throughout the encounter, actually began to throw rocks at them, possibly to hasten their exit from the area. The couple were certain that this was a bear, not a person in a costume. They also did not allude to it being a hair-covered man-like creature. This was a bear. It was real, and it was terrifying. It must have weighed almost a ton. He was big and hairy, she told the reporter. When asked to describe the creature's voice, Stephanie noted, "It didn't sound human. It had a very high-pitched voice." Sheriff's deputies, along with officials from the Greenwater Fire Department, went out to the area to investigate. Sheriff Sergeant Terry Schmidt, speaking to reporters, claimed that they found no signs of a struggle around the campsite, though they did find tracks that they believed to have come from, quote, a very large dog. Schmidt added that he believed that the couple probably did encounter a bear, though he did not elaborate on why he believed that. He also added that they hadn't ruled out it being a complete hoax, that they were still investigating. It seems highly unlikely that a couple would make up a false report involving something so ludicrous, a talking bear, possibly risking a fine or worse, unless it actually happened. And in the world of the paranormal, an angry talking bear is par for the course.